Which parts of Australia won the next round of the NBN fibre lottery?
And what will Vodafone's truly unlimited mobile plans mean for mobile data prices?
Vertical Hold is proudly brought to you by Aussie Broadband, changing the game with their award-winning network and Australian-based support. Hey there, welcome back to Vertical Hold Behind the Tech News. It's the weekly show where we sneak across the state borders to catch up with Australia's leading tech journalists and chat about the big tech stories of the week. I'm Adam Turner, and I'm joined as always by Alex Kidman, a man who's decided that he's had enough of playing better than life and wants out. Alex, what was your first clue that life is a lie and you're trapped in a simulation?
Look, I think it was when the torso of Jim Carrey stopped walking past my bedroom window every 3 seconds, because that had been there for years. And I just figured, yeah, everyone's got that. It's always there. And then one day it wasn't there. And I started to ask the hard questions.
Well, we really are mixing up our references here because I was about to say, speaking of obscure Red Dwarf references, this week we're also welcoming back Chris Duckett from ZDNet into the virtual Vertical Hold studios. Chris, what tipped you off that the world is a lie?
Or maybe it's a white hole. That's when time reverses. And it's been a while since I watched Red Dwarf, but if you know the reference, you know it. Also, I do expect to wake up at any time and find out it's a game and I'm actually, what was the cat's human form?
Dwayne Dibley.
Oh,
Dwayne Dibley. That's it. Yeah.
So it's once again time to sup from our soup du jour, the NBN. It's announcing a slew of new locations that will be the first to get fibre upgrades, plus it's released a revised corporate plan and a lot more. Now, the NBN is also fighting off competitors, especially in wireless broadband, and this week Vodafone made a bold new play in this space, announcing an unlimited, he says with air quotes, mobile broadband plan. Hey, Alex, didn't Vodafone already have an unlimited, air quotes, mobile broadband plan?
Well, yes, but mostly no. This is where it gets kind of confusing, because when we started to get theoretically unlimited mobile plans, all the telcos were really, really careful around this because they didn't want the ACCC to come in and sim smash them. So the mobile plans that you've been able to get to date that have offered what they've generally called endless data have had a data quota at full speed and then speed shaping, generally at much, much lower speeds. Although, to be fair to Vodafone, it was the outlier here, because if you were on one of its higher tier plans, you still got a big speed drop, but it was down to like 5 or 10 megabits as opposed to 2, which is what you get with Telstra or Optus. What it's announced this week, though, is a genuinely unlimited, best speeds you can get, $85 a month, unlimited mobile plan. Chris, is this an exciting development in the Australian telco space or just more of the same?
It's exciting if you only think about 4G, I think. The other thing on here is 5G, which, Vodafone doubled their efforts today and said, we're doing, 5G home internet. Okay, that's cool. But just go look at a Vodafone coverage map and it's patchy. It's real patchy. You go on there, it's a sea of pink. Pink means 4G.
Bad.
Yeah,
Okay.
pink means 4G.
Pink means 4G,
the blue bits are the 5G, and they're just all over the shop. I do think, though, in the coming years and so, as TPG gets up to speed with its 5G, yeah, this is good. This is the sort of deal that people were saying TPG was going to do with all these small cells. When they were busy building that mobile network they never completed a couple of years ago, that they would come out with a cheaper all-you-can-eat sort of plan and just sort of see how the market would go. There's been room for this. I like it. I don't know if I would jump on it in my concrete bunker, but I'm glad it's going to be useful for some people, I hope. The other thing that Alex didn't mention is that this plan has a 30 gigabyte hotspot allowance into it. Now, I've asked them, how are you detecting this? Like, are you somehow shipping out 2012 iPhones that used to block that, and you would have to, call up your carrier and say, yes, I tether, please let me tether. I don't know how they're doing this. I mean, there are certain ways, but they haven't said how they're doing it. I reckon that Joe Schmo out there could go get the $85 plan, go for gold, and see if Vodafone will block him. That's what I would do. And if that fails, maybe then I'll think about their 5G home plans. But until then, man, it is mighty tempting to have $85, all you can eat, all the mobile you want, and you don't have to worry about a fixed line. That's a tempting offer.
It's an interesting one, though. And get onto your point about comparison with the likes of Telstra and Optus. There isn't exactly anything like this because Vodafone are first to market. But for $85 in a mobile plan, you can get a lot of data. You're certainly not really going to want to be starving for straight up mobile data. And I was going to get onto the whole hotspot thing, Chris, because it is an interesting play. It's one you see a lot in the US. The big US carriers, a lot of them have their version of unlimited, and US consumer law means that they can get away with lies an awful lot more about what unlimited actually means than they can in Australia. But a lot of them do that whole either you can't tether or you're really super limited on tethering. And I can recall years ago actually heading to the States for CES and picking up a SIM that was meant to be unlimited data and working out really quickly. If I dropped it into an iPhone, couldn't tether a thing. Drop it into Android, I was away and plain sailing and no problems whatsoever. So, the blocking mechanism, I think, is going to be really key there. But, Chris, you kind of mentioned them also opening up 5G fixed home broadband. And I think TPG's also said that they've done really well. I think in their half-year results, they said they did really, really well out of selling people 4G home broadband, in effect, 4G fixed wireless kind of stuff. There's a really interesting counterpoint, though, because the plans they've announced for the home broadband are, I think it's $75 for up to 100 meg, which is kind of your NBN equivalent, sort of, or $85 a month, exactly the same as this plan. No speed limits, no data limits, but of course, you've got to buy an actual fixed modem. You can't move around with that thing.
Yeah, that is $600. That's what they said it was.
Ooh.
It is a charming, like the ones that Optus sell are about 300 and something off the top of my head. This one that Vodafone's got, they put in the thing. Look, is it 600? It's probably not 600, but they're going to charge you 600 for it. $612. I've just brought it up. Like that is I hope this modem dances. But like the way things are, they'll come up with some mechanism. It's the same 3-year period as Optus anyway. So instead of paying it off like $7 a month, they'll say, "Oh, we're paying it off $15 a month," or whatever accounting trickery they want to do. But so you've got to get the modem, and looking at the ultra premium unlimited, whatever they're calling the flagship 5G home plan against this new mobile plan, they look exactly the same. I also asked Vodafone, if you got this mobile plan and you downloaded several terabytes a month, when
of
are you
Linux ISOs?
That's all I ever. Yeah. Well, I mean, these days it's like, no, it's was it you're doing the ACCC 5 Ultra HD streams at once?
Right.
If I'm doing that, when are you going to fair use me out of existence? And they just replied back with, "It's unlimited." All right, fine. We'll find the limit when it gets there, then I guess.
Someone will test that because people are like that. One of the weird things, I was reading through the CIS summary of the mobile plan, and you're right, it gets confusing because they're $85 and it's unlimited versus unlimited. But the mobile plan gets really weird when it talks about roaming. And obviously, roaming's not a big thing right now. None of us are particularly international traveling, but they're doing that classic Vodafone $5 a day thing. And my brain immediately went, "Oh, does that mean I can when we can in that far-flung future travel overseas,
yes,
just go overseas and go nuts?" I don't think so, but the wording is really unclear, and it looks like you might be stuck just with your 30 gig of hotspot data.
Oh, wouldn't that be terrible overseas? As a Telstra customer, please throw me into that briar patch. That would be great.
I'm sure Vodafone would be happy to take your money. Now, Chris, you kind of talked about their, Vodafone / TPG, same company, of course, their 5G coverage being particularly patchy. They're much slower to the game than Telstra and Optus have been. They recently cut a deal. TPG recently cut a deal with Dense Air, though, for 5G. Is that going to make a big near-term difference to their 5G plans?
It gives them a bit more spectrum, which is good. Probably it'll just help them manage the traffic. Maybe they can go through some more walls and stuff, but it's just a simplification. They don't have to worry about having this high band and this low band stuff. They can combine it into one contiguous. Actually, wasn't low band; it was mid band. But they got this one contiguous set in the middle, and they can just deal with that. It just makes a lot of sense, and they've got more and more spectrum means that they can handle more traffic in the major cities, which is what they want to do, right? You need the spectrum if you're going to sell unlimited plans. And if you're lucky enough, and in Sydney, that's basically if you're in Parramatta, go nuts. Like, absolutely go nuts on this stuff. As for the rest of us, just keep looking at that map.
In theory, you would get whatever their best possible 4G speeds are. This is not a 5G only plan, though.
No, absolutely. And it is, in that sense, it is true. It is one of those things where it's like, okay, yes. We are talking about non-millimeter wave 5G, so we're talking multiple hundreds of megabits per second. We're not talking about outrageously fast stuff. But, for a lot of use cases, yes, the 4G is, it's usable. It would probably be enough. It would probably be enough. But when you've got the 5G in there, you definitely know it's going to be enough. I think that's the difference. It's just you have to sit there wondering how many other 4G users are on the tower and all that sort of stuff. If you've got a 5G signal, there's not that many 5G devices out there. There's probably chances are there's not going to be that many on your actual tower. And so you can go nuts for it.
All right, so to be honest, I'm getting a little bit lost in this conversation because sometimes we're talking about mobile services and sometimes we're talking about home fixed wireless services. But when we're talking about home fixed wireless services, do they offer a 4G version and a 5G version? Is there separate pricing on them, or do you automatically get 5G if you just happen to be in a 5G area? Like, how are they figuring that out?
No, because it would come down to the radios that are in the modems that they sell you. So if you go to TPG now, today, and you go to the NBN page and you try, the first thing you see when you go for a 12.1 plan is it says, hey, have you tried our LTE fixed wireless?
Yeah.
Right? It tries to shoot you off there. But the 5G stuff will be, there is very much a different 4G service from a 5G service. And TPG have said that they want to keep that into the future because particularly for those customers that want a 12 megabit service, they can service them easily enough off the 4G network and give them a better experience. So they'll keep that plan around. That'll be their, in TPG's perfect world, that would become their standard plan. It wouldn't be the 12 megabit NBN plan. It would be the LTE fixed wireless on TPG plan.
Chris, I would presume, though, if I was a Vodafone customer in a metropolitan area, because they haven't said much about regional at all, and I decided, look, I want 5G in my future, they wouldn't stop me signing up to a 5G plan, would they? I could sign up for this $600 modem if I wanted that future-proofing.
Well, when you go to the site at the moment, Vodafone say that it's available to, I can't remember the word. It's like selected or I think, no, wait, their 5G rollout is in selected areas, but you have to be at an approved address. Now, it turns out that the Venn diagram of selected and approved is pretty much on top of each other because I put in some addresses that weren't, that did not have 5G coverage and they're like, sorry, we can't get to you. Would you like our 4G service instead? So they seem to be running, when the first step you do is to put an address in, and they seem to be running that against their network coverage maps before they offer you the rest of the product.
Optus did very, very similar when it was doing its 5G fixed rollout as well. So that's a pretty common play in that kind of space.
Yeah, I don't think it would be, a terribly good look to have someone paying for 5G that they can't get. I'm sure that Rod would not like that look at all.
The big SIM smash.
Well, given that he's dragged them all to court on exactly the same sort of thing with copper NBN lines, right? Like, oh yeah, no, sign up to $250. That's fine. We don't care that your line can only. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we don't care that you can only get 70. So, yeah, there's a very good reason I think why they're taking that approach, Alex.
At the same time, though, there is still qualifying language around this. Like that $75 plan is up to 100. And the $85 plan is best possible speeds. If the best possible speeds happen to be, 256K, well, good luck with your faxing.
Yeah, but that's always how it's been, right? You've got, air isn't infinite, doesn't have the spectrum is not infinite. So if everyone that's on the tower decides to all start streaming at once, that's the way it's always been.
Well, the other thing that this does, of course, is it shows the telcos very much taking on the NBN. And I think it's time that we switched over to the National Broadband Network and our soup du jour, because there's been quite a bit of news around the coverage and the rollout. Chris, what's new in NBN land?
So, NBN added, another 300,000 fibre to the node upgrades. They announced that this week. To answer the question in the intro, who won? It's all over the shop. The places that jump out at me different parts of different states. So there's some stuff to the south of Sydney. We'll just do New South Wales first because that's what I'm most familiar with. There's stuff to the south of Sydney. So we're talking, all the way down to Mollymook. Then you've got stuff up on the north coast. So Tweed Heads is in there, Yamba's in there, Pottsville's up in there. Then you've got, and the Northern Beaches is in there as well. Why not? Throw them in. Then you've got, in Victoria, they've got, you've got Williamstown's in there. You've got Lakes Entrance. I'm pretty sure they're not close together, given my geographical knowledge of Victoria.
Lakes Entrance is about 3 hours drive from Williamstown.
It's very nice.
Oh, it is. It is, but it's nowhere near Williamstown.
No.
They're both on the water.
And if you drive from Eden, it's like 6 hours of trees. Like, that's when you feel that you're in the Matrix, because you've seen these trees for the past 2 hours. And then, bam.
Was that the same tree?
There's a lake. And, a different town. And you're like, whoa. Yeah, cool. And so you've got that going on in Victoria. Then in Queensland, you've got Toowoomba, Maroochydore, some place called Yorkeys Knob. I mean, I don't know where that is, but it sounds like a great name. And so, it's very much all over the place. The thing with this is that everyone that's currently in the fibre to the node network is going to be on these lists eventually. They're well over halfway of announcing upgrades to this network. They're just sort of, we are going to end up with, I think, with like the dog's basket right at the end of 2023 available one that they just haven't covered in previous announcements at some point.
So why do you think they're doing them in this order? I've got a couple of theories. What do you reckon?
Well, NBN have said straight up that they were doing the earlier ones. Basically, they thought that they could get higher uptakes and therefore more money in quicker.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember the NBN is now paying back its government debt. It's also reduced its financial forecasting because it's now taken on private money, and it's saying because it got some of that money from America, we're not going to do multi-year forecasts like we've been doing for a decade now. They'll only forecast 1 year out like a private company, except, of course, they're not a private company. We still own them, but be that as it may.
For now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, that's the weird thing, right? Like, eventually they're supposed to be anyway. So, NBN is saying that they wanted these early ones because they thought they could get the money out. They're doing the business fiber zones as well, which is where they really need to make money, because we've seen over the past decade that the average revenue per user is stuck in the mid-40s. It needs to get to $51 a month. This is using some very old calculations now, but it seems to be the same level we keep talking about. And the only way they can get there is from business fiber. So they're rolling out business fiber zones in regional Australia. And I reckon when they drag in that fiber through, that they go, well, we're going to have to upgrade fiber to the node anyway. So if a suburb is on a business fiber zone, you just say, okay, cool, add the residential suburbs around it to the list and we'll do it next.
Yeah.
The catch there, though, and I know we have spoken about this on the podcast before, but for anyone tuning in for the first time, the catch there, though, is you might be in those rollout suburbs. It does not mean that a nice person from the NBN is going to wander up to your house and just run some fibre to the box at your wall. You actually have to do something in order to qualify. Chris, what is that?
You have to talk to your retailer, and you have to tell them that you want a plan that is faster than 100 megabits per second if you are on fiber to the node, or have a line that can't get to 100 megabits per second as well. So, if you were on a, say, 50 plan at the moment and your line could only get 80, you're like, hey, I want 100. Once this program's up and running, they'd be like, oh, okay, cool, we'll roll. We could remediate your copper, or we could just run out a whole line because we've got fiber to the box down the street, which is that would be what they're going to do in the future. And then, just because this is also easy and simple to understand, if you've got fiber to the curb, you need to order over 250, and they will then replace your fiber to the curb with full fiber.
So is that gigabit over 250? Is that gigabit only, or do you mean 250
No, they've
or
got
better?
you got. I'm trying to remember if it's less than or equal to.
Fast.
Look,
You've got to get a faster plan.
Look, I can safely say if you order a 500 on fiber to the curb, that they will say, okay, you need fiber. I think it's 250 and above, I think.
Okay, and this is not something where you can think, hey, I'm in those listed suburbs. I want my fibre tomorrow. I think they said November's when they're starting the rollout.
November's when they're starting the trial of the upgrade process with the first places. And the first places were around Lake Macquarie. A lot of them were around Lake Macquarie up Newcastle Way. So Charlestown, Belmont, they'll probably be first in line. And then, this is the announcement we're talking about is like the third tranche. And so and like we said, they're more than halfway through. So this stuff's sort of going to progressively roll through, kind of like how the rollout progressively rolled through. I don't know if they're going to do letterbox drops or anything, but we'll see. I'm sure telcos will, because they want the extra. They make money from the high-speed plan, so they'll want users on them. So
we were talking before about basically who owns the NBN and where the money came from and who's paying who back. This really sort of confuses me, is that the Victorian government is putting money into the NBN to get fibre upgrades in Victoria. What the actual, why, how can they be taking government money to do a job that they kind of took government money to do that they're paying back to the other government? What's going on here?
So what you've got here is you've got money from two different funds. So you've got Connecting Victoria. I think that's the name of it.
So that's Victorian government money.
Spring Street has put $500 million just over here. They're gonna, and that's the stuff they're using to hook up to get mobile coverage on the train lines and that sort of stuff, as well as mobile black spot programs and all that sort of stuff. But Spring Street has their own pot of money. NBN has their own pot of money, and the Andrews government took 70 mil out of their pot and handed it to NBN to hold in trust, right? So they've still got to work out what's going where, right? What they've got now is written. It's not written in stone, very thick pencil, but not stone.
Very thick pencil.
Yeah. And that's going to be held in trust by NBN to do these upgrades in regional Victoria.
But why should Victoria have to pay for? Isn't that what NBN's supposed to be doing anyway?
Well, NBN's completed their job.
They wiped their hands of it and we did the minimum.
The network is built and operational according to the Minister for Communication. So if you want to go beyond fibre to the node,
8 million tin cans in the world's biggest roll of string.
Particularly if you're in regional areas, they need. NBN has said that they want councils, they want state governments to, what they say, how they put it, is to upgrade uneconomic areas.
So chip in.
Yes. And Victoria's
miss out.
And Victoria's gone, we'll do it. Because, there's an almond orchard out there that, they stumped up for it as well.
It's a great outcome for people who live there. I'm not complaining about that. It's just the economics of where the money's coming from, whereas how we were told this was going to work. If you'd told people back in the beginning that this was going to happen, they would have said, you're crazy. We're setting it up so you don't have to do that.
Yeah,
everybody's getting great internet.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, Victoria should have taken equity. That's what I reckon.
Yeah, great. I want to own part of the NBN. Yeah.
Well, getting aside from the financial pages for a second, we've also seen a new measuring broadband report, and
stand back.
For most of the telcos,
light the candle and stand back.
It's not great news, is it, Chris?
I would actually say that it's good news. It's just that the stats are really dumb.
Explain.
Okay, so ACCC has this love. They hide behind percentages because they don't want to put out the raw numbers, because then all the telcos will all go and have a cry. That's not what my network does. Well, it is, mate. It's what we're measuring off our Sam Knows boxes. But it leads to these convoluted situations where you've got it all falls down to the advertised speed. That's what you got to remember here, the advertised speed, which jumps around from telco to telco. And so you've got the advertised speed and then how often each telco is hitting that advertised speed during peak hours. Now, everyone in the past 3 months has actually more or less increased their advertised speed. But in doing so, the amount of time they're hitting their advertised speed has plummeted. So there's no better example of this than Superloop. So they were low 90s on their 100 megabit plan. It needs to be said that pretty much everyone's quoting 50 megabits on a 50 megabit plan, and they're pretty much hitting it, by the way. But Superloop was in the low 90s for its 100 megabit plan, put it up to 100, and then went from getting like 98, 97% during busy hours down to 48%.
Oof.
Now, if you were just looking at those two graphs, you could sit there and go, oh my God, Superloop has just fallen, it's just fallen over and it's, sitting in a pile of its own dung. The thing is, though, is that because they've raised the estimate up, I would wager that most users don't think that they're probably actually getting better service. It's just that they're failing to hit the number that they're advertising.
Speed is only noticeable when you actually don't have it, in other words.
But isn't that to discourage them from advertising numbers they can't reach?
It does mean, yes, that they're advertising numbers that they can't hit. But because they're coming higher and they were previously at 90, I've got a theory that they're actually, so say they were advertising before at, say, 93, and now they've hit it up at the full 100. I reckon that they're probably getting somewhere in the order of, say, 97, 96. And it bears repeating, they're hitting 100 48% of the time, right? So I reckon if you're on that network, you're getting more bandwidth. But in the numbers, it looks like everything is terrible. And that's what happened. It happened across the industry. People raised their numbers up, and then their percentage during busy hours just plummeted. Everyone was pretty much in the 90s, high 90s. It was pretty boring little graph. This time, it's all over the shop, except Telstra. They've done it, people. Once you take out lines with bad copper, Telstra is absolutely smoking everyone. They're hitting 106% during busy hours, and in their busiest hour, it's 103.4. So you are getting what you pay for.
But what's their advertised speed, though?
100.
100. All right.
Telstra, unless I'm very much mistaken, Telstra was pretty much the first of the telcos to basically say, here's our NBN 100 plan, we will give you 100, where everyone was still very much playing at KG and doing your 93s, your 94s, that kind of thing.
Yep, Telstra came out, said, we're going to get 100. And everybody, for at least one quarter, maybe two, was like, that's cool, guys. We're happy with our 93s. And then Telstra has just kept ramping up the amount of CVC it puts on this stuff, and it is smoking them.
Is that sustainable long term, though? Are they just throwing a lot of money at this to win in the short term? Or
Well, the part with the firecrackers was
here we go.
When the ACCC said, since we mandated over-provisioning, we've seen speeds increase between 10 to 15%. Really? When you mandated 10% increase, speeds go up by 10%.
Since we made them make it faster, it's got faster. Yeah.
Like, it bears repeating too. Telstra advertised that as a free speed bump. They didn't tell their users that it was the ACCC. It was Rod making them do it. Oh my goodness. So this is a rare occasion. I will say things are better. If you're on Telstra, you're paying premium for premium service. You're getting a premium result. I mean, they're a lot more expensive than everybody else. But things are actually looking good. It's just that when you do it on percentages behind graphs, it just looks terrible. And I really wish they would put the raw numbers out, but they won't. Now, should I mention New Zealand? I really think I need to mention New Zealand.
Sure, we weren't feeling bad enough. Yeah,
what are the Kiwis done now? Hi. Okay, so you need a sting. What is New Zealand doing better than us? Okay. Yes. Every 100 megabit per second that is up or down will turn into 300 megabits per second for free.
Oh,
If you are on a business 100 megabit symmetric line, you are getting turned into 500 megabit each way.
when does the bubble open?
Right?
When do they annex us?
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
all right, the other way around. Yeah.
Yeah. Like, yeah. It's good news about the NBN. Yeah, it's still a toilet. Just go look at New Zealand. Yeah.
That's insane.
Yeah,
And that's because I assume everything is fiber, so you can do that.
Not everything is fiber. They've only got about 860,000 for the whole country. That's chorus. Yeah. And there's another about 100,000 or so through other fiber providers, but it is the vast majority. You do have a like Telstra sort of 15 year ago style big wholesaler chorus sitting there. It's yeah. Anyway, it's tangled. I'm not going to explain the way it works, but
they can't do that in Australia because everybody's got a different mismatch.
They can't do that in Australia because in New Zealand, Chorus and the government have an arrangement where Chorus acts as a private company, but the government gives it stipends to roll out the network.
Yeah, which is what Telstra could have done here if Sol wasn't such a jerk.
Yeah. And now we go into our history program. But yeah, whereas here, NBN is still government ownership and it's obsessed with producing a commercial return. So it is not going to do this. But you can do that as a private company because they've still got the likes of Vodafone running the HFC network over there. So they still have a form of competition. There's not many user numbers, but the cable network in Auckland does exist. So they want to really smoke them.
So what you're saying, in conclusion, is that if we want faster fixed line broadband speeds, we should basically get one of the Australian Olympic swimming champs. I don't watch sports, people know this. Tie a cable to them and just get them to start swimming towards Auckland like right now.
Yeah, I mean, look, New Zealand does do a lot great, and their version of the Measuring Broadband New Zealand report also pointed out, though, that if you're in the South Island down there, for reasons unknown to them, they discovered that so for years they've been doing all these measurements from servers on the North Island, and they're like, oh, we're not really sure if the South Island's getting the rough end of the pineapple. So they put a server in Christchurch, and then they went, oh, it looks like everyone is routing their traffic through the North Island for reasons we don't understand. So there's still, everywhere you go, there's still stupidity.
It's universal.
Yeah.
Well, that just about wraps up another episode of Vertical Hold. Thanks to Chris for joining us for this week's show.
Always a pleasure, gentlemen.
Now, Chris, you've been on the show before. You know what's coming, the Vertical Hold 3 questions of doom. And we're mixing it up again a little bit this week. So, 3 questions. You can answer them in order once I've finished them. Where can people find your work online? Where can they find you on social media? And the big contentious question, no explanation required, best album of all time. Go.
Okay, Exile on Main Street.
Oh, yeah, he can stay. He's won. That's it. It's over.
And track me down on ZDNet.com. You can, if you want to, you'll just find me from there. Just go to ZDNet.com. That'll do. But yes, particularly in this week of Charlie, it's Exile.
Would have also accepted Let It Bleed.
Fair enough.
Sounds good to me. And as always, you can catch us online at Vertical Hold AU on Twitter, via the Vertical Hold Facebook page, or on the web at verticalhold.com.au.
And just a reminder for regular listeners, we're thrilled to have Aussie Broadband as our sponsor this year, and they've given us a special promo code which gives new customers a $10 per month discount for 6 months when signing up online for an unlimited plan between NBN 50 and NBN 100. The promo code is vertical, so hopefully that'll come in handy for Australian listeners shopping around for a great broadband service. And as always, thanks everyone for tuning in. Hang in there. We know it's tough at the moment. Tell your friends about us. Leave us a review on your podcasting platform of choice and help us spread the good word in 2021. Vertical Hold is proudly brought to you by Aussie Broadband, changing the game with their award-winning network and Australian-based support. Second crack at it. The Zoom is on 6 minutes 18 and the iPhone is on 5 minutes 58 and I need to sneeze. Hang on. Yeah, I do, but it's on the way.
It's these kinds of extras that you only get when you
Yeah.
subscribe to Vertical Hold Plus, our new Patreon.